A prominent academic predicts, based on data, that Christianity will continue to decline in Britain and British Islam will increase dramatically. And she also predicted a flourishing interest in magic. Yeah, magic. Professor Linda Woodhead provided the context for the religion census results during her presentation at the annual lecture that the Religion Media Center holds in London. She said that the census was expected to show that fewer people in England and Wales identified as Christians, from 72% in 2001 to 59% in 2011, possibly to below 50% this time. Second, she stated that the percentage of people who identify as none or non-religious increased steadily from 15% in 2001 to 25% in 2011, with predictions that this percentage could rise to 33% this time. Thirdly, the percentage of people identifying as Muslims has steadily increased, rising from 3% in 2001 to 5% in 2011, and possibly 8% this time. And this is some kind of substantial difference and a milestone for Muslims, no? She used 5 indicators of vitality to determine which religious movements and phenomena would survive: intellectual comprehension of the metaphysical, institutional practices that continue, community and feeling like you belong, ethics and values, and spiritual connecting with the sacred. Woodhead used this method to identify 4 trends in British religious life and predict which would survive or thrive. These are the observed trends: fundamentalism, which won the war but lost the battle; Islam finding its place, or Muslims finding theirs; religion's decline and magic, and the rise of non-religion and the church fire sale. She further remarked, fundamentalism has had a fantastic 30 years, maybe 60 years in all the world religions, and almost all the churches in Britain. Both moral Puritanism and the belief in plain facts, such as Jesus' bodily resurrection, were inherently exclusive. We have the facts. No, you haven't. To the media and the churches had been taken over by fundamentalism. When she began discussing various forms of Christianity during numerous interviews with the media, the reporter responded that these were too wishy-washy and not the natural religion. However, Professor Woodhead further stated that fundamentalism had won the battle but lost the war. You must be thinking about why did she say that, right? Because she observed the facts in every aspect. The post-war strict moral standards against divorce, remarriage, women's equality, and LGBTQ+ rights had turned Christianity into a toxic label, and the upcoming generation didn't want to be linked with it. Regardless, the revivals had not stopped the severe decline of Christianity. Liberal Christianity had lost its cultural capital due to its failure to provide philosophical theology and dependable answers to questions about beliefs. She stated that Christians in this nation were just as ethically liberal as the general populace. When it came to their ethical perspectives on euthanasia, divorce, and abortion, Anglicans were no different from the general population. However, their leaders were reacting against absolutely dominant ideas. Professor Woodhead also mentioned the fire sale of churches, cultural property, and the rise of non-religion as another trend in her conversation. It indicated that various secular organizations had diverted work and education and knowledge. Other businesses had provided similar services without a religious affiliation. The community values, beliefs, and rituals of the churches had disintegrated. It is a mere and severe failure for a prevalent religion to offend people's moral sensibility. The abuse scandals are just the latest nail in the coffin of the church's utter failure as moral authorities, stated Professor Linda Woodhead. Professor Woodhead also identified 2 vital growth areas for the coming decades, and one of them is the establishment of British Islam or British Muslims. She further stated that Islam was not widely known in Britain until the 1970s. The first generation from South Asia had to build mosques, halal butchers, and schools from scratch. The second generation started charities and civil society organizations. With Muslim MPs and self-assured young people entering higher education, British Muslims were now finding their voice, mingling with numerous ethnic Muslim communities, and developing a new cultural form of British Islam through food, clothing, music, and creative places. British Muslim cultural output is cool worldwide and is getting a global profile, she stated. However, she further said that British Islam ticked all the boxes regarding the community, institutions, and spiritual criteria on her list of ways to determine whether a movement had vital signs or not. Keeping it intellectually healthy was the most difficult challenge. Many universities now have centers for Islamic studies, with moves to study metaphysics and theology in addition to Islamic law, which is a significant milestone. Last but not least, she projects a decline in religion and a continued fascination with magic, including fairy tales, ghosts, omens, famous prophecies, village healers, wise women, souls, and the afterlife. She stated astrology and tarot are gaining a lot of interest among my students and Generation Z. They use apps on their phones to access them. Additionally, those interested in expanding their intellectual horizons attend festivals, listen to podcasts, and possibly join a Wiccan or pagan group. The fascination probably existed in every society throughout history. The only difference now was that it was no longer stigmatized. People talk about it with one another. She expressed her thoughts here and said, "Paganism has grown, diversified, and formed many right-wing and left-wing subcultures. It is necessary, and many young people are involved in it." She further asserted that the contrary was true, and that magic was mocked for being shallow and superficial. It required a lot of thought, and was much more effective when it dealt with science and cosmology, evolution, and the cycles of life and death. The energy was everywhere, and Gaia was the planet. And finally, Professor Linda Woodhead ended the conversation with this statement: "I hypothesize that approximately 1 in 5 people, or about 20%, are deeply interested in religion, magic, or spirituality in any generation or era other than those with religious repression. However, it never really changes. They were, in my opinion, always the minority. Besides, I believe that they will always be the minority."